my way, telling me to go where I can now. Such a long way, I don't even know where I am.
Hi everyone, today I'll be reviewing Jim Sullivan's album U.F.O, which came out in 1969 by Monty Records. And I first heard about this album by listening to a Spotify playlist. It's the one that's custom made for you based on what you listen to. And it was the self-titled song from the album U.F.O. And I was not prepared for what I heard. I was just so blown away. His voice sounded like it belonged in a country folk song, but the song itself was this psychedelic rock that was so polished and perfected. And it reminded me of a long lost song off the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds, and there's a reason for that, and I'll get to that later. So I'll start with a little history of Jim Sullivan. His nickname was Sully, that's what he liked to have people call him. And his profession was a musician. I mean, his whole life was based around songwriting and playing his guitar while his wife worked and he had kids, and he would just play music. And he would play different clubs in LA that attracted a lot of famous actors and musicians, and actually one of his biggest fans was Harry Dean Stanton, which is my favorite actor of all time. So it's kind of funny how things come full circle. It's just such a small world. Sully even made an appearance in the movie Easy Rider alongside Dennis Hopper, which I have yet to see, but he had a lot of almost famous encounters in LA at the time, but never really made it big. And a reason for that is Sully wasn't really a self-promoter. A lot of his friends and families kind of had to push him to go out and play clubs and even to eventually record. And since Sully lived in LA, he knew a lot of people and somehow got to work with Phil Spector's The Wrecking Crew on his album U.F.O. And that's the reason why the self-titled song gave me such a Pet Sounds vibe. The Wrecking Crew worked with Brian Wilson on Pet Sounds. So I'll talk about some of the songs that stand out on the album. My favorite song is Plain as Your Eyes Can See. And the lyrics in that are just so genuine. It sounds like he's actually talking about someone in particular. It sounds very heartfelt, and it's got like a blues rock sound to it, which I really like. It's really groovy.
Read what the signs say. Falling rocks are on the road.
And the next song that I'd like to point out is Rosie, which has the most beautiful lyrics in any of the songs, in my opinion. And you can tell they really take advantage of the Wrecking Crew. And the attention grabber of the whole album is obviously U.F.O. You can tell they spent the most time on this.
Think he'll ever come again a different way. Maybe he is coming while I was away. Too much goodness is a sin today. I'm checking out the show with a glassy eye, looking at the sun dancing through the sky. Did he come?
So the whole album is just a really nice blend of country, blues, and folk rock and psychedelic rock, and each track is just so different from the one before. And all the lyrics, they say, it's notorious for having cryptic lyrics, which is true because I try to make sense of the songs, and I tried to decrypt Jerome, the first song off the album, and I thought it was about a guy in particular, a magic man, as they say, and it was about an abandoned town in a desert. And so I was way off, and it really is kind of mysterious lyrics, but they're very beautiful too. It's all about what you perceive the lyrics to be too. That's half the fun of it. So I hate to end this review on kind of a sad note, but Jim Sullivan is no longer with us. In fact, he's been missing since 1975. So there's a lot of theories and a lot of stories, and it's one giant mystery, but I will talk about it a little bit. So the story is that Jim Sullivan didn't really have a whole lot of success in LA, and he thought about traveling to Nashville to see if he could make it big there. So he left in 1975, I think it was March, and he drove, and the last time his wife heard from him was when he called from a phone booth and said, just to check in, and she asked what he was doing he was calling from Santa Rosa, New Mexico, and she asked, why are you staying there, and why aren't you just carrying on to Nashville? And he told her, you wouldn't believe me if I told you, and kind of left it really mysterious. And he was picked up by the cops there and taken in. He was drinking very heavily, and they released him because he didn't do anything, nothing against breaking the law or anything like that. But Jim Sullivan definitely had a bit of a drinking problem at that point in his life because his music really didn't gain much public attention, and music was all he knew. He was at that point in his life where he couldn't really learn another trade because he was just used to songwriting and playing clubs, and that was his life, and he wanted to keep going with that. Sully was last seen picking up a bottle of vodka at a local store, and they found his car abandoned miles off the main road, and he basically just wandered into the desert and disappeared. It's really weird. There's a lot of theories on what might have happened to him. Of course, people are going to make the connection that he got abducted by UFOs, but that's probably not the case. My theory is that since he had bought a bottle of vodka, he probably got very drunk, stumbled into the desert, and got dehydrated, and he probably passed away there. It is very odd that they never found a body. I mean, there's a lot of theories about him getting murdered, but they just don't really seem to add up. We might never know. I mean, it's been a long time since it's happened. It is sad that his life ended that way. And other than U.F.O, he does have another album that I have yet to kind of dwell deep into. So we don't have much of Jim Sullivan, but we're lucky to have this. I highly recommend it. It's on Spotify, and I actually got this on eBay, the vinyl, and there's quite a few copies of it. I was surprised, and I kept it in its plastic up until recently, and last night I actually opened it, and it had this little insert in it, and there was so much information about his life and his disappearance. And this is actually a typed out letter from his wife about where he was last seen, the people that last see him. It's really sad, but it's all the information's there, and clips of articles about his disappearance from newspapers, and there was a lot of mistaken identities. They thought that they found him, but it was somebody else, and it just kept going on, and they never found anything. Well, I hope that you listen to U.F.O. It's magical, it's one of a kind, and I think it'll kind of speak to you about his life and how he perceived life. And so that is it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.
Sing ba da 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 da. Who's that stepping off the train?